Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Trailing Back Again. My name is Mark, welcome to the channel. Today I'm gonna shoot a little bit of a video while I'm out on my day hike based off a video that Crow from As the Crow Flies Hiking did. Oh geez, it's a few months ago now maybe. But he did this kind of neat video called Always, Sometimes, Never, and Regret. The funniest part is the piece of gear that I was going to cover in my regret, I forgot to bring with me on my day hike today. Oh, that's kind of interesting. The irony is there for sure. So I'm out on a day hike. I'm going to stop here in a few minutes and go through my items, my always, sometimes, never, and I'll talk about my regret. Stay tuned. Well, are you still with me? It hasn't even been a minute. I hope you're following along still on my little trek today. So let's talk about this kind of neat video here of, what was it? Always, sometimes, never, regret. There's a few items that I always take on my backpacking trips and oftentimes even on my day hiking trips. And there's gear that I sometimes take and gear that I never take anymore. Of course, there's always that exception, right? And there is a piece of gear, maybe only one, that I ever regret taking and also regret not taking. So let's dive in. Let's dive in. Too much talk. One piece of gear that I always take is a ground sheet. Now, this is a footprint off of a one-man Big Agnes tent. So it's just the size of a pretty much a small one-person tent. This thing is great because it's very, very light and it's really versatile as well. There's a nice little video done on this recently from Senior Hiker 77. So just go search Senior Hiker 77 and it was a video that he did in, I believe, November of 2023, this year when I'm recording. And he covered a few different purposes of a ground sheet. For me, I use it for a few reasons. It always comes with me. Sometimes I'll take a bivvy. I'll talk about that in a minute. And when I take a bivvy, if it's wet out, this becomes a ground sheet under my bivvy. And if it's not wet out, this becomes a ground sheet next to my bivvy to put my gear on, to just keep it dry, just from anything, or keep it clean off the ground. I do the same thing with my hammock. When I go hammock backpacking, which is my norm, this goes underneath my hammock on the ground to put my gear on. And then if it is going to be raining at all, I'll fold it over my gear as well, just in case there's any misting that comes in. It'll keep my gear clean and dry. This is also really nice for if I just want to take a quick break when I'm on the trail. I can just put this on the ground and sit on the ground and not get dirty without hauling out a chair or a stool or anything like that. Also, I don't always take a chair or a stool, but I always have this to sit on. So a super versatile piece of gear that always comes with me. There is one other piece of gear that always comes with me I want to talk about, and that is my Dyneema tarp from Hammock Gear. This is an 11-foot tarp. Nothing special about it, no doors or anything. It's just kind of a straight hammock tarp. Even when I rarely, hardly ever, because it's on my never list, take a tent, this always will come with me no matter what. Because if it's raining out, it's nice to set up a tent, but it's also nice to have somewhere to sit that's not in a tent, especially if it's raining a lot and you set up camp early. It's nice to have a tarp to sit under, to do your cooking, to hang out in, especially when you're with friends. So this always comes with me. Of course, I hammock camp most of the time, so this obviously has to come with me. What I have learned this year, always set this up when you hammock camp. Even if there's no rain in the forecast, at least get it set up, even if you don't deploy it. I got a rude awakening this year, thankfully about 10 minutes before I usually wake up, but I woke up to thunder. There was no rain in the forecast at all when I went to sleep, and I barely got all my stuff packed up and in my bag, and it downpoured. I mean, the heaviest downpour, lightning, thunder for about 30 minutes straight. If I would have had this at least deployed or set up on the trees, I could have taken about 2-3 minutes, deployed this really quickly, and not had gotten soaked. like I did that morning. So I always take this, and now, from now on, I will always at least get it strung up, ready for deployment. Okay, so now let's talk about the gear that I sometimes take. The first piece of gear I want to talk about is a trekking pole, or in this case, it's the goat stick from Get Out Gear. Well, I really like Get Out Gear a lot. The reason this is not on my always list is I live in Michigan. It's flat. And even when it's not flat, it's almost flat. There are a few good-sized hills in Michigan. Nothing that I would call trekking pole necessary, barely trekking pole worthy. So when I take a trekking pole, it is basically more of a fidget stick. I will sometimes take trekking poles if I want to do a lot of miles in a day, because when you are on flat surfaces as well, if you use the trekking pole properly to kind of push you along, you can keep a faster pace. Once in a while, sometimes twice a year, I will do that if I want to put a lot of miles in a day. But the main reason why trekking poles come along with me is so I could put my hammock tarp into porch mode, especially if there's rain in the forecast. It's really nice to put your tarp into porch mode to hang out underneath in the evening if it's raining, or in the morning if it's raining. So for sure, if there's rain in the forecast, these come along with me to put my hammock into porch mode while I'm awake. Of course, I take it down at night if it's raining, but it is a nice option. They don't always come with me because I'm a flatlander. I don't really need them. They're more of a luxury item that sometimes come along with me. The other item that I sometimes take is also from Get Out Gear. This is the first version of the Puffy. I just did a video on the latest version of the Puffy. The reason why this sometimes comes with me is it comes with me in place of a top quilt or a sleeping bag. The weight for the top quilt I use in warm weather is the same as this. It's a pound. And but what I like about this is the versatility. If it's a little cool in the morning, you can turn this into a poncho, and that is a really nice option. It's also nice to not have any sort of confinement in my hammock with my feet, you know, being in a foot box. Although that's a nice option if it's a little cooler. But in the summer months, and even in the late spring and early fall, this is typically part of my sleep system. And I just started that, this year or last fall. I forget, somewhere within the last year, I started sometimes bringing just a quilt as part of my sleep system. I like the versatility of it. I like the comfort in my hammock. I'm not confined in any way. I'm kind of a warm sleeper, so it works out just fine. One more sometimes I will talk about, and that is simply my Bivvy. This is I believe a waterproof bottom. If it's raining, I always put that ground sheet underneath it, so I've never tested that. But it has a screen top, which I really like. Keeps the bugs out, gives you a little bit of that sense of home while you're sleeping at night. But I will sometimes take this, especially in the cooler months. It's just something different to take, something I enjoy. But I will take this along with my hammock tarp and make that part of my sleep system. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Okay. Let's talk about a piece of gear I never take anymore. I already hinted at it, but that is a tent. This is my two-person, I think it's a Tiger Wall 2, Big Agnes tent. It is a phenomenal tent. This is the tent that my daughter uses when we go backpacking. This is the tent that I loan out to people when we go backpacking. A really great piece of gear that I like a lot. I'm just not a huge fan of tent backpacking. Yeah, sometimes I'll take my Bivvy, but that's usually because I want to go really light in the cooler months, or light in general, so I'll take that. I don't like being confined to a tent. I'm not as comfortable sleeping in a tent with a, what do you call those? A sleeping pad. I'm so comfy in a hammock. It's just hard to go back to the tent. And with how light my tarp is, the weight of the under quilt and the hammock and the top quilt and stuff, they equal out pretty much for me. So it's not a weight savings one way or the other for me. I just prefer the hammock. So the tent darn near never ever comes with me anymore. The gear that I was going to talk about that I regret taking and that I regret not taking, and I totally forgot taking it with me today, I regret that, is an umbrella. An umbrella is a really interesting piece of gear because when I take an umbrella and it rains and I use it, I like that my upper body is staying dry, but I hate carrying it. And when you're walking on the trail, it's inevitable. You're gonna come across low boughs off of trees or tight trails. And so you're always fidgeting with the umbrella. It's just kind of a pain. I just kind of hate fidgeting with it. I'd rather just put a raincoat on and keep hiking. I don't know. But then when I don't take an umbrella and I just have my raincoat, my pack will get wet. My stuff always stays dry, but I always just feel soaked. And I'm never really soaked, but I just feel that way. And I always think, man, I wish I had a stupid umbrella. So it's one of those items I regret if I have it, and I regret if I don't have it. I don't know. Does that make sense to you? Anyway, it makes sense to me. So there's my always, sometimes, never, and regret. Thank you, Crow, for doing that really creative video a while back. Animals. I just think that was a really cool idea for a video, and thank you for asking other YouTubers to do it. I don't know if anyone else has. I'm sorry if I missed those, but I thought I would do my version of it. So I will extend that invitation that Crow initially had. Other YouTube channels, other backpacking, hiking channels, what are your always, sometimes, never, and regret items? I'd love to hear about it. And if you don't make videos, put them down in the comments. I'd like to hear that too. Okay, thanks for joining me on another video, and we'll see you out on the trail. God bless y'all. Bye-bye.